How's everybody doing? Doing good? All right, excellent. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Looks like we have a good crowd. My name is 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗻. I'm the CTO within our Strategic Partnership and Alliance at IBM with Microsoft. It's a pleasure to be up here and have you guys join us. I'm going to introduce one of our pride and joys, our infamous field CTO, Apptio, 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗀𝗻𝗁𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀🐬. Phil?
Wow. Pride, joy, infamous. What an entrance. Well, good morning, everybody. It's really great to see all the attendance here, and we're going to take you through the next 45 minutes to tell the arc of a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And just, it's not early, but it's not late in the morning, so I'm going to try to keep it, add a little levity with some tech dad jokes as we infuse. So if I can get a groan, a guffaw, a chuckle at least, I'll know that I'm doing the right things. So. Right. Here we go. So that's us. It's bad when my LinkedIn is the same jacket. It makes you all think that I only have one outfit, which is not good. But Leon, you look handsome as always. So let's tell our story. So 5.8% is the number for the growth in global technology product spend by businesses and government in 2025. So it's a small number percentage-wise, but if you think about the trillions that we're spending on tech, it's doubling the pace of GDP. So that is still a good sign for all of us in the tech industry that obviously there's still a lot of growth around. And yet, dun dun dun, cue the kind of mysterious music, 63% of CIOs struggle to communicate the value of IT. So if any of you are in a technology leadership role out there, raise your hands if you get a question from the business. Why does IT cost so much? Does anybody? Yeah. Why does it cost so much? It's like, yeah. So we want to turn that conversation from why does it cost so much to what value is IT delivering for us, right? How many orders did we process? How many unique website visitors did we host? On and on. So that's really part of why Apptio was founded back in 2007. I was employee number 30 and saw the company go from IPO to private equity ownership and then being acquired last year by IBM for $4.6 billion. So we now have 1,500 employees devoted to this space. So 4.4 trillion potential value from generative AI. So that's a big, like, audacious number. But I mean, how much longer are these blank checks from the business going to be cashed, right? At some point, people are going to be asked to substantiate what are you getting for your money. But this is an opportunity for my first dad joke. So, you know, not every kind of generative AI deployment goes as well as it should. And so there's a lot of feedback that comes back to the prompts. You know what the number one kind of negative thing you say back to the prompt? What you call a bad prompt? No. You call them a degenerative. What do you think? It's a little grown.
Come on, guys.
All right, come on. All right, we're rocking. So, trying to frame the problem, where are we spending our money in tech? Are we investing in the right things? How can I take my keep the lights on budget and cut more in my monthly run costs so that I can fund innovation? And then what is the value? And we talk about a concept called unit economics, right? Just telling someone or explaining in a quarterly business review, here's how much a particular business line or service costs to operate. It lacks the context of what did that service do? Right? What was the business function? What is the unit of measurement of that given service? So those are some of the questions. And then what we face is headwinds. We have growing tech spend, distributed workforce. You know, a lot of us are coming back to work in an office, maybe some, heaven forbid, 5 days a week again. But then the pace of innovation is moving very fast as well. So think about if anybody ever read the book Project to Product, you will see that technology organizations are really trying to adopt a product-centric mindset. And what that means, especially if you have a mobile device, I think most of us do, how often a week or every month are you being pushed updates to the latest operating system version that unlocks, generative AI and other interesting things? All right, so in our IBM kind of technology business management portfolio, our mantra is to deliver industry-leading technology spend and value management solutions. So across the agile development lifecycle, across financial management or ITFM, and certainly across FinOps and this notion of the Cloud Center of Excellence, right? So we do this for a number of different stakeholders. So starting from the left, portfolio leaders. So what does a PMO care about? Well, you want to be able to align the goals of the business, right? Does everybody operate in the language of OKRs, objectives and key results? Anyone? Come on, somebody does. OKRs? Yeah, of course you do. And how many folks have Azure DevOps or some other kind of work management tool underneath where people are posting things to Kanban boards? Well, think of us as this connective tissue between the two. You want every story point, every epic, every release train to be connected to this top line kind of board level set of imperatives that are explained by OKRs. All right, next, with CIO and IT finance, we need to be able to pivot a general ledger view of costs that comes in a chart of accounts and cost centers and things that the people in finance care about more into a technology spend kind of pivot. So how do you do that? Well, you fuse together financial information with operational information. So you take inventory and utilization about your infrastructure. You take work management, whether it's people logging time in timesheets or whether people are logging story points as increments to development work. You want to provide a financial TCO picture based on those. And we filed over 20 patents on our platform to do just that and bringing these operational and financial metrics together. So then you talk about the hoodie crowd, right? Cloud Center of Excellence, FinOps, DevOps. And so, there are multiple cloud service providers out there, although we love Azure the most. Is that right? Yes, okay, but we have to acknowledge that there are others. And so in those cases, we need a single pane of glass to bring all of this spend together. But you also want to make optimization decisions, both financial optimization about your upfront commitments. A lot of cloud spend grows organically just by spot usage, right? Start with a credit card, start deploying workloads, and then all of a sudden you're encountering higher and higher bills. You need to get out in front of that with 1 or 3 year commitments, reserved instances, savings plans, EDPs, right? These are the language that people speak when you have a better upfront picture of what you're going to do in the cloud, and therefore, by spending more upfront, you're saving more money on the long term. And then the other part of that is really the operational optimization, where you're right-sizing, you're deleting unused volumes, and so forth. So those are what we do for Cloud Center and FinOps. And then when you think about the observability space, by bringing to market solutions like Instana and then Turbonomic as well, you want to get a visualization of the topology and at the application layers, and then instrument the end-to-end kind of end-user experience to understand where the hotspots are and where performance issues might be. It's not just about the infrastructure. I don't know, Leon, did you study the OSI model? You got 7 layers, right?
I did, yes.
It's crusty up in my brain, but yeah, this is more at the application layer of the OSI model. So those are the products that occupy those spaces. Apptio, the company, and also Apptio, the IT financial management platform. And then with Cloudability, and we just announced the acquisition of StackWatch, which are the makers of the leading Kubernetes and container cost management and optimization, and then Turbonomic. And then with infrastructure and observability, Instana and Turbonomic. But, it made me think about, with the infrastructure, Leon, there are a lot of personalities in DevOps and Kubernetes. So I was talking to somebody in the hallway out there, and I was asking them how their Kubernetes deployment was going, and they said, it's a cluster. Thanks. All right. Okay. Thanks. It's a good surprise.
I'll give him that one.
All right. So being able to, this is what I was speaking about before, is this connective tissue between the work that goes on in underlying systems like Azure DevOps, and then connecting that with the strategy and the OKRs that often live just in PowerPoints, right? You need to bring life to these OKRs. When you review them at the board level, all people are doing is typing in stuff into PowerPoint. So think about having a more organic and dynamic way of connecting. What have we built? What have we fixed? What have we delivered as new capabilities? And the questions that are answered off to the right is, what is my mix of labor? Sure, people sit in departments. You can calculate their salary and benefits, but how can you actually get to a TCO of a product if people are splitting their work vis-a-vis story points across multiple initiatives? That's hard. The finance people that I speak with, trying to capitalize all this labor, they're just like a bug on the ground with their legs in the air because they can't keep up with these capitalization rules or be defensible to auditors, and that's what we help you do with this platform. And then connecting it, not just with the labor, but the overall kind of financial implications of if you greenlight an initiative, you want to build generative AI in your call center, how much is it going to cost? And then how does it actually deliver value in the end? So here's a demo. Now, I recorded these myself. I always like to be dynamic with my hands on the keyboard, but I'm up here. So what we're doing is looking at Azure DevOps, okay? And people are familiar with what ADO looks like. Now, think about if Azure DevOps went and got a business degree. So we're looking at target process. It's a Kanban board like ADO, but we can ingest all of those issues from ADO. And here we have at the bottom, deploy Gen AI for the call center. All right, so we're going to drill into that and show you why it's different. So first, and it might be really small writing, but what we're doing is building the business case in the issue itself. We're attaching all the documentation that we need for other people on the initiative to understand what they're doing. And then we have business case type metrics. What are we doing? What's included and excluded in the scope? What are the risks associated with this initiative? And then, what teams are we going to assign to it? And back end, do those teams have the capacity to actually deliver? Do we need to hire more people? What's the t-shirt size of how big this initiative is, how much it's going to cost, and how long it's going to take? So all these, the squeaky wheel gets the grease is not always a good thing. Right? You want a more empirical way to reconcile initiatives against one another and pick the winners and the losers that you're going to go down. So those are, this is the first part of our story, that every idea should have a business case behind it, and then that goes into a reckoning with the PMO to be able to figure out which of these are the best. All right. You get that. I hope it's a good call. Being able to optimize. So now we're in the middle part of our story, right? You have green-lighted this initiative, and now we have to deploy stuff. So Cloudability is the solution here, where we can see how much we're spending across all cloud service providers. I won't name them all here for fear of retribution, but we can tell then and split our costs into one-time usage, recurring charges, and so forth. So being able to even get a view of how all of this spend is going. How many people understand or have heard of FinOps? FinOps, wow, a lot of FinOps. Okay, great. So first pillar of FinOps is the inform phase. Help me get my arm around costs. And in this case, there is a spending anomaly. So $20,000 of unusual spend. You don't want to have to wait until you get your cloud bill from the provider to understand this, that one day in November, there was a $20,000 anomaly that happened. So think of the ability to instrument this, connect connect it to PagerDuty, create a Jira or a ServiceNow issue. This is, really merging kind of cloud center of excellence and operations so that you can have better running of your cloud portfolio. So I don't know if anybody else has commitment issues. I did in my 20s, but I'm better now. So by being able to get out in front of your financial commitments, and this is why people say, well, why can't the native tools do this? I have Azure Advisor and I have other tools from other people. This brings in a business context. So it's not just the cloud operations people who are looking at this. Whether it's the views that are displayed, the business metrics that come along, we are expecting business people, CIO office, Cloud Center of Excellence, multiple stakeholders to collaborate, and I don't think you'll see that in native tools. All right, right sizing. So show me the money. How am I able to understand where are my biggest opportunities to right-size my infrastructure? Well, this makes it super clear across which platforms, which services, and then the kind of math behind them to drill into the details to say, based on CPU, memory, disk, network I/O, we are making a recommendation to go from a larger and more expensive shape down into a smaller shape. So let me pause for a moment. So what we have now is Turbonomic, and it's kind of an abrupt video transition. Bad computer. So when we get Turbonomic, this is why IBM is now the leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant and the Forrester Wave around cloud cost management. Why is that? Well, everybody takes a forward view or a backward view of understanding cloud costs, and the space is rich with competitors. But being able to automate the actions to remediate problems and conditions that it sees, that is the amalgamation of Turbonomic and Cloudability together. And that's why I encourage you to download the Gartner MQ and the Forrester Wave report. So think about that for a deeper audience of operations people, also for on-prem infrastructure in addition to cloud, Turbonomic will provide you recommendations, and in a single package of Cloudability Premium, we are going to manifest these two feature sets. So this is, you're seeing a living, breathing kind of roadmap coming together, and we're just a year into this acquisition of Apptio. So by being able, now, people, if you've seen Terminator and then Skynet and the rise of the machines, it's kind of daunting and scary. You might be out there saying, I'm never going to let some machine take control of my environment, which is reasonable. It's a reasonable kind of risk-averse point of view to take. But what if we could give you things that are reversible and non-disruptive? So while Cloudability by itself is going to tell you, it's like the penny saver. You ever get the penny saver? It's that paper they throw on your, I clip some coupons. You ever clip coupons? Sure. All right. So
all day.
So Cloudability is the coupon clipper, but Turbonomic then is what can give resources back. So it's not just about cutting; it's actually about applying policies and algorithms to look to see maybe you need to upsize. Maybe based on your peaks and valleys, you need more capacity. So we're not just giving, we're not just taking away, but we're giving back, which makes you feel good inside, doesn't it, Leon?
Absolutely.
So this example then is going from 160 IOPS to 3,000 and still saving money. So this is an example of the policy engine that we can take automation policies, we can have look-back periods for how far you collect data in order to make a decision, what types of services do we include for migration recommendations, what do we exclude. So those are things that are very valuable when you bring these tools together.
And Phil, just a show of hands, how many feel that this would be hugely beneficial? Just kind of show of hands.
Huge.
Huge.
I like it.
Excellent.
All right, so moving forward, let's talk about, so instead of just looking in the past, we have brought to market what we call workload planning and cloud financial planning. So being able to, for DevOps professionals, as you are bringing new workloads to market, you have a bill of materials. You have how many write units you need to make in MongoDB, what your CPU and memory and I/O settings are. So imagine putting that bill of materials into a solution that then influences a forward forecast. So you're not just kind of reacting to what's been deployed already. You're actually looking into the future and then comparing, if you understand the discount programs across multiple providers, then as you add these resources together, you can see VMs, databases, load balancers, and all these different criteria that you can input. Well, then in the end, you get a reckoning of how much this is going to affect your run rate. I'm skipping ahead to the good stuff, all right? So being able to then understand how much all these things cost. And it brings to mind this kind of sentiment. You know, is everybody familiar with shift left? You know, what we're trying to do, right, is reach further into the kind of development workspace. And we've seen this disrupt everywhere. In fact, it's even disrupting Little League baseball. I don't know if you've seen this in the Redmond area around Seattle. We're seeing that actually batting averages are down like 40% among Little Leaguers. It's really sad. Oh. And we tried to dig in to see what was wrong, and they said, well, my parents kept telling me to shift left in the box. And, okay, all right, no, that's good. See, more groans, that's good. So that is part of that. So let's go back to our story. So we now have this forward view of being able to plan workloads into the future that affect a financial forecast, and now with that kind of armed, we now can understand a bit of the future and not just the past. The final thing I will mention is this acquisition of StackWatch, which are the purveyors of KubeCost. So what that does is provide expert container cost management for all your flavors of Kubernetes, on-premise and off, getting into not just cost management, but optimization. These are examples of savings. This is offered as, depending on your criteria, there are free downloads of KubeCost that you can evaluate this yourself and understand. I believe there's tens of thousands of customers already who are using this free edition. So that's pretty exciting. But now let's look at these two products together, Turbonomic and Cloudability. So you're in the Cloudability house, and without Turbo Autoscaling, you would not be giving resources back to people. With Turbo, you are. And so not only are there savings in that tab, but the necessary investment. So it's not all just coupon clipper, Leon. You got to sometimes ante up and pay the piper.
I bet.
Right. Speaking of piper, that reminds me that cloud has disrupted a lot of things lately, even baby names. Have you heard, based on the proliferation of AI, like what the two most popular baby names are?
I have not.
Well, for boys, it's Jason. And for girls, it's Pearl. What do you think? All right. A lot of good groans.
Pretty good.
All right. Thank you, folks. So being able to then kind of round out the middle part of our story is we're going to be able to tell you where to save. We're also going to have to give you the hard lesson about where you need to invest and make this dynamic. That's why, again, we're at the top of the magic quadrant. It's not all just about a look in the past at cost savings, but a look in the future. So Cloudability Premium gives full integration. So people say, well, what does IBM really do? And they're just going to run these products into the ground and have separate development streams. No, we're going to integrate credentialing so that you only authenticate with cloud service provider one time. We're also going to integrate users. So if you have single sign-on, which you integrate with, you're going to credential users a single time. You're going to have Turbonomic-powered optimizations and actions. And then we are pointing this technology very much at the AI space and optimizing GPUs for the proliferation of AI. All right. And then pursuant to shift left, there's no dad jokes this time, I promise, but Cost Guard is now a new element of cloudability that is shifting left further. So think about being able to create policies on what you want your developers to be able to do. So they work in GitHub and Terraform, and you write deployment scripts. So imagine, if you will, that you have a set of policies on how you can restrict going out, so you can restrict the shapes and the services that people are deploying on. You can restrict the price of any given service that you want to get out. And so in the middle, this is basically building scripts within GitHub and Terraform to be able to deploy this. So again, this is called Cost Guard, and it is a part of cloudability. So, again, reaching the developers closer to where they live. All right, so proactive insights to developers: comply with internal policies before you deploy, and integrate with GitHub and Terraform. All right, so for my final part of the story, all right, where's Waldo? Where's Leon? We're right here.
Absolutely.
So the first part of the story was to reconcile a business case of what generative AI could do and the potential value of it. The middle part of the story is to deploy and understand and control the infrastructure that these initiatives run on. The final part of the story is being able to manage the ongoing TCO and value of these. So, number one, we're going to integrate with enterprise systems of record, with IBM Apptio, ITFM costing platforms. So there's financial, there's labor, there's infrastructure. We're going to use machine learning to organize, allocate, and map data. We are going to support costing, planning ahead, billing, chargeback, benchmarking, and then track and deliver value. So having self-service to where people can answer their own questions instead of using email. We're also, my group has been participating in early efforts to integrate our AI assistants into being able to query these directly. What are my top most expensive services? Who is my biggest business stakeholder? Where's my budget variance? Those are questions that we're hoping to answer through AI. So we start with a TCO view, AI cost, what's addressable, and then we start getting into value metrics. So think about being able to query the API of these generative assistants and understanding the tokens you consume, right? There's input and response tokens, and that's often the way these services are built out. You have infrastructure and being able to measure what you're being billed for, number of hours of labor, number of instances, number of tokens. So of course we support heterogeneous environments to look across everything. If you want to look into your GPU spend, these are all of your GPUs running across different cloud providers. So these are kind of the understanding the cost part, if that makes sense. Now let's go into the value. So if you think about it, we want to understand people. How many are running multiple prompts, multiple assistants? Like we have HR in IBM, we have IT, we're running customer support. I mean, I don't know how many. You might know better than I, Leon. Probably 10.
It's, at least 10, 12.
So being able to understand the efficacy, because everybody I talk to out in the public, we're still kind of in the testing phase. And it's like, okay, well, how do you prove to people that you've rolled something out and you have users hitting it and you don't have hallucinations of the assistants that are giving really bad answers? Well, by being able to measure this over time and be able to understand how much you're paying in both your on-premise and your token count of services, but then if you understand how many support cases a given chatbot is taking on instead of a human, then you can start to add up the dollars and start to make your overlords kind of happier, right? We wrote a blank check for this, but now it's paying off. We have 20,000 interactions with the help desk over the last month. So if you start kind of whittling this down and you have a tier 1 AI agent that handles password resets or the basic stuff, and you leave the tier 2 and tier 3 stuff still to people, then you can start to reconcile, people are now having more capacity to serve the higher level kind of problems that people have. And you can start to have a greater kind of support ratio, tickets per FTE. So we want to be able to see AI interactions going up as measured by tokens and interactions, and then you want to see kind of human interactions go down in terms of hours or interactions. So you think about connections to Salesforce or Zendesk or whatever, ServiceNow as your support mechanism. So, you measure value in mean time to resolve, being able to show how much your customer sat, in terms of NPS scores are going up or down. So those are examples of how you can substantiate the value, not just the investment of this. So that's kind of the way our story ends up, that we had an idea. It was a great idea. We learned it at the Microsoft Ignite show. We needed to put a business case behind it. The business case was ratified and moved forward. It went and was deployed in a combination of cloud and on-premise, and we have tools that we showed to monitor those, and now we quantified the value. So back to my pal Leon to bring us home.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I'm not only Phil's pitch man, but I'm temporary bodyguard at Ignite, so we'll keep that between us. Thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it. So as I mentioned before, I'm CTO within our strategic partnership and alliance with Microsoft. Well, we partner, and our partnership is extremely broad and dynamic. And so as part of that, we actually have a number of products, IBM products, 24 plus products that are within the Azure Marketplace that are available. We have our target process that was available to date, that was launched on September 30th. And of course then Apptio, our next launch of course is with the IT financial management, which is coming on here in December. So I really encourage to take a look at the products that we have, of course the value that we're bringing to this, and then our technology itself around FinOps, and also on DevOps. The integration that Phil mentioned before with ADO is tremendous. The ability for us to do integration, of course, and even have automatic entities that are associated to, to boards and work items is pretty profound. And then, of course, integration with GitHub and GitLab. So any of the development aspects that you see that are beneficial there, you obviously take full advantage of that. So again, really appreciate the opportunity and time to present. I think we have a little bit of time for questions or Q&A.
Does anyone have questions that you dare ask in front of hundreds of colleagues?
Question? I think we have a microphone here for you to help out.
It's probably in a little late, so I don't know if you spoke about the pricing model for Apptio. Is it like a free service, or if we want to buy that service, how much does it cost? How's the pricing done?
Sure. So pricing model was the question. So in characterizing against the three chapters of the story I told, upfront target process is typically licensed based on the number of users. So active users that log in. The middle of the story, when you think about cloud infrastructure, that is typically monetized by the amount of cloud spend a given organization has across all of the cloud providers that they use. And then for the last part of the story with IT financial management, that is typically, again, a spend under management. So if your IT budget is 50 million, if it's 100 million, if it's a $500 million, then we have kind of pricing bands accordingly to that. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, and you asked about free. So kube cost for container cost and optimization is free as long as you stay within a kind of set of constraints. So that is downloadable kubecost.io, I believe. Yeah. Okay.
Excellent.
Mark?
Phil, nice to see you up there in your shiny jacket. We did get a couple questions from online. One of them was about infrastructure right-sizing.
Yeah.
And what does that look like from an engineer perspective, and kind of how can they use that to help with the infrastructure right-sizing?
Okay, so infrastructure right-sizing is an interesting bird. And engineer, I'll kind of give two flavors of engineer. So when you look at the tenets of FinOps, there is a notion that there is a cloud center of excellence that's comprised of cross-functional people. There's people from the business, people from finance, and people from DevOps. And so engineer in that case, everybody's looking at the same sheet of music. So you are going to get a set of recommendations. Now, some people are going to say, well, these environments are cordoned off, these are production, we can't touch them. But then you have development, DR, and other workloads that are easier to get. So the engineers need to agree on a prioritization plan on where's the money, show me the money, right? And if you are going earlier in the cycle, Coast Guard, right, is writing back or policy managing GitHub and Terraform so that a developer who is trying to deploy something is going to get some feedback that what they're trying to deploy and what objects or what shapes they're choosing are inappropriate. So then it either gets kicked back or approved, and it goes into a loop like that. So I think of two stages of engineers. There's the cloud center of excellence kind of engineer that look over prioritized lists, and then more of a developer who's deploying workloads, who then integrates with these other tools. They may not ever even see cloudability. Yeah, so those are, I think, my two answers on that. You got another?
Is there any other questions for me?
Yeah, sure.
Are there any limitations to people working with CSPs?
No, as in maybe can I ask you to extend your question a little bit? So limitations with people and CSPs.
Yeah, Azure, like cloud service providers, so we go through, companies that does our billing for us and all of that stuff. We are kind of restricted on some of the reservation, the actions, and things like that. So I'm wondering if there's any sort of limitations.
Yeah, there could be. Now, our platform support extends to IBM Cloud, Oracle Cloud, AWS, GCP, and of course Azure. So we cover all those, but depending on your agreements, there may be. But we also are bringing to market what's called the managed service provider flavor of cloudability that then kind of is more knowledgeable of that restriction, that there is a kind of master, service provider view that's the wholesaler of these cloud services and then sells them to customers like yourself who are compartmentalized into legal entities. So I would encourage a further conversation with us to dig into the details. Yeah.
And I assume it's a CSP Tier 1 that you're part of? Not too sure? Okay, it sounds like, but yeah, I think
As long as it's not like Alibaba or something, like we would
so.
typically cover,
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
Another question online. We have a couple questions about turbonomic actions and how turbonomic actions and cloudy reporting work together.
Ah, yes. Well, it's funny, when we first became a part of IBM, there was this obvious overlap that for a given service, Cloudability has a recommendation and Turbonomic has a recommendation. So if you kind of put your hand over your eye, which one is the truth? Like, Leon, do you trust the priest or the rabbi? Like, they're both really good people, right? So you don't know. So that's what's gone into our roadmap, is to kind of reconcile the prediction engines. And I will say that, Cloudability's framework is intended to be as broad, to look across every service and provide savings recommendations, whereas Turbonomics is much more tunable. The policies, how far in the past it looks to understand a trend or a pattern, what constraints you use when you actually allow it to take actions. And then one other thing I'll bring over to you all from the FinOps Foundation, there's a lot of talk about this COIN index. So if you've never heard of it before, it's the Cloud Optimization Index number, COIN. And what that does is it's starting to gamify FinOps. Let's say that Leon has $1 million of cloud spend and Mark has $2 million that he manages, okay? 1 million, 2 million. And they both take $10,000 worth of corrective actions. So 10,000 on 1 million is a lot more productive than, it's twice as productive as 10,000 worth of actions on 2 million. So I can start to put Mark and Leon and others in a dashboard to see, after giving all these recommendations on what to do, are you pressing the button? Are you remediating? And you know, developers are more geared towards kind of provisioning and building stuff. They don't always have the cost acumen. So this is kind of adding a new lens of cost to the developer community. COIN. Okay.
Les, I have a two-part question for you.
Uh-oh.
One, do you have a booth here, and is it booth 339?
Well, absolutely, we have a booth here, and apparently it is booth 3. I mean, it's big blue right in the very close to the middle. And then there was an event that we wanted to talk about people going to, right?
That's right. We have an event tonight. I think, Jacqueline, our event is located
Row 24.
Row 24. Thank you.
Stop by the booth to go there. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Yeah, so we hope to see all of you at row 24 for food and libations.
That's right.
All right.
I hope so. And more jokes.
Yeah, well, let's hope not. All right, yeah. Fill out your surveys and be honest. I can take it. Yeah. So thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you so much, guys.